Tonight's program is brought to you in part by Lily.
Welcome and thank you for attending. SAA Storytellers, Your Stories on Stage, is a virtual community storytelling show that is an extension of the community stories featured in our quarterly news magazine, Spondylitis Plus. A special thank you to our sponsor, Lily, who helped make this special space possible. The stories presented here tonight are pre-recorded, but we are gathering tonight live to celebrate the spondylitis community and the healing power of story. We will hear stories from Patrick Herzer, Amy Muskoplatt, Rick Phillips, Ricky White, and Carrie Kellenberger. Please post comments before, during, or after the stories. Since our founding in 1983, the Spondylitis Association of America has been the face, the voice, and the leading nationwide nonprofit organization educating, empowering, and advocating for people living with spondyloarthritis. Our mission is to be a leader in the quest to cure ankylosing spondylitis and related diseases, and to empower those affected to live their lives to the fullest. Now, SAA has many resources. Just click on the link in the chat to learn more. All right, so let's get started. Our first storyteller tonight is Patrick Herzer. Patrick says the very best part of his life is his family. He's married to the most amazing woman he has ever known, and together they have a little boy who is adventurous and hilarious. Patrick loves to read, run, and play and watch sports. He has served in both church and counseling ministry for the last 20 years, and he is a national board certified and licensed therapist, and enjoys working with individuals, couples, and families of all ages. Let's hear his story.
Well, I'm so excited to be sharing part of my journey with you. I've gotten used to telling my story to people who don't have AS and getting to explain what ankylosing spondylitis is and what it's like to live with arthritis in my back and in my hip. And telling about how sometimes in the morning when I wake up, the pain is so bad that I practically need to listen to a motivational speech just to be able to get out of bed. Or how about that confusion of your body telling your mind to stop moving because it hurts so much, but then your mind responding that it's okay that it hurts, you need to keep moving or it's going to get worse. I mean, we literally choose pain now so that we experience less pain later. And for us, movement is medicine. And my medicine of choice is to run. I love getting out on a trail somewhere and being in that fresh, open air, running with trees around me, running up a mountain. I just come alive in that space. But the problem is that it hurts to run a lot, but it also hurts not to run. It's a confusing space to be in. And I often end up getting left with this question of, why can't I be like other runners? Why do I have to hurt? It's a question that I wrestle with a lot, and it ended up leaving me in this space of feeling like there was limits to what I could do. And I didn't like that. I didn't like how AS was starting to make me feel like I couldn't do certain things. So in order to fight that, I decided that I was going to do the most intense and most impossible thing that I can think of, that I was going to run a 100-mile ultra. This means running anywhere from 18 to 36 straight hours. It means that running through multiple kinds of terrain. And to me, it's impossible because I've never done anything like this before. The longest race that I've ever completed was just over 13 miles. But I was all gung-ho to go for it. And so I began training and it was going well until it wasn't. I ended up having an AS-related injury that cost me 3 months of running and my race. But I decided not to give up on it. I decided to push through and to start training again. And it was right around that beginning part of training again that I ended up having a breakdown moment. It's October of 2021. and I'm running up this hill, and it's a hill that I used to be able to dominate pre-injury. It's the perfect day out. The sun was out. It was not too hot, not too cold. There's this nice breeze that's coming down the hill. It's the kind of breeze that's just enough to cool you off, but not so much as to hinder you from being able to run. And honestly, I should have been enjoying this run, but I wasn't. And partially because I was in terrible shape and my heart was beating a million miles an hour. I've been there before though. And so I told myself, it's okay. You got this. Take a deep breath and keep going. So I did. And as I ran, my left hip started to hurt. That's not uncommon for me. My left hip hurts all the time, but this was a little different. It hurt a lot. It was like somebody was taking a hammer and just slamming me over and over again in the hip with every single step. But I kept going. And then my right hip started to hurt. And this is a different kind of pain. This was like an achy tightness that was keeping me from being able to keep my run pattern going. It was making it difficult to run, but still I kept going. And little by little, my body began to break down. My upper back started hurting, and then it was my mid back, and then my low back, and then my calves clenched tight, and I couldn't go anymore. I was shut down. So I stopped and I bent over to try to stretch my calf muscles up. But instead of stretching, I ended up dropping down to my knees. And into that slight breeze, I screamed out, "Why can't I just run?" And in that spot, that question came to my mind again. Why can't I be like other runners? Why do I have to deal with this kind of pain? Eventually, I got up and I continued to run, finished out the run. And by the time I got back to my car, it was dark. I got into my little Subaru and I began to drive home down that dark, windy road. And as I was heading home, my emotions were all over the place. I was feeling angry. I was feeling sad. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling afraid. And I had all these thoughts that were rattling around in my mind. Why am I doing this? What's the point? What am I trying to prove? Why? And then my emotions went flat and I numbed out. And as I drove in that numbed out space, suddenly I get this text message from a family that I used to go to church with. And on my smartwatch, all I saw was, "Our 11-year-old son has been diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis. We would appreciate hearing from you." So I instantly pulled over into a McDonald's parking lot. And as I sat there with that greasy cheeseburger and fries kind of smell filling my car, I called this family and I listened as they told me about the story, this journey that their son had been on, a journey of pain, experiencing pain in his hip and in his eye. And then they told me that he'd been wrestling with this question. Why can't I be like other kids? Why do I have to hurt? My heart stopped. And in that moment, I realized that this little 11-year-old boy is wrestling with the same question that I've been wrestling with. And now I've got my why. I am not doing this for myself. I am doing this for this little 11-year-old boy who doesn't understand why he is hurting so much. I'm doing this for that 20-year-old young man who told me that he would rather die than live another day experiencing this kind of pain. I'm doing this for that mother who told me that she feels like she is a failure of a mother because she can't pick her children up and comfort them because it hurts too much. I'm doing this for that bearded older gentleman who told me that for the last 3 months, he has not been able to walk and he's starting to give up hope. Why can't I be like other runners? I can't. But what I can do, I'm going to do.
Patrick, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your guidance and your help with it. And you're a gift, so I appreciate you as well.
Well, thank you for trusting me with your story and for you being so vulnerable and honest. I think it's really going to resonate with a lot of people. I have a question for you. So what inspired you to start your Instagram page?
Yeah, this journey, I think so often because our disease is kind of it's an invisible disease. I felt alone for the longest time in it. And so I want to create community and connectedness through my journey, to hear other people's journeys. And so Instagram seemed like a really simple place to just post some pictures, get people talking, and see where it goes.
Is there a certain picture or story that's really resonated with a lot of people?
Yeah, there's a picture. I'm not sure if I did share this on Instagram. It's the story of my very first flare up, and I posted it on there to tell the story of like the memory of that. And it's a black and white picture of me, and it was on over Christmas break. My son's just outside the window learning how to cross country ski with my wife and in-laws, and I'm sitting there and I'm in massive amounts of pain, and I can't go out there. And every time I see that, like I no longer see the pain that I felt in that moment. I see the journey that's laying ahead of breaking boundaries and figuring out new ways to do new things. So.
I love all the aspects of your story, especially the having to switch up the runs. I think we talked about this a little bit. Like you'd have to on the fly, right? Like change the type of run or distance. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, part of living with AS is that you don't know from day to day, you don't know how you're going to feel. And so, yeah, I have an amazing running coach who creates a plan for me. And so each day I know what my plan is, but I don't know how my body's going to react or respond. And so I do my best to try to push the limit, but I have to listen to my body as well. And so I could be planning, last week was planning to do a long 13-mile run and switched it up. And I think I did like 11 miles. I was supposed to finish the last 3 miles at race pace. And I think I did a lot of walking in those last 3 miles because I was hurting. So yeah, it just kind of going with the flow, listening to my body and being ready for whatever I need to do that day.
I think both your story and your Instagram page both show everyone how adaptable you need to be when living with AS. And I can't thank you enough for being part of SAA Storytellers and being so open and honest and sharing your story with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this.
That was wonderful. A big thank you to Patrick for sharing his story and being part of SAA Storytellers. If you'd like to learn more about Patrick, just click the link in the chat. All right, our next storyteller is Amy Muskoplatt. Amy leads creative crafting and writing workshops around Southern California for both adults and families in public and nonprofit settings, and mindful journaling for wellness programs. Amy loves to make handmade cards and create with papercraft, and she sees crafting as a powerful way to help people find well-being, purpose, and recreation. Teaching card making and doing handmade card making has shown her that it's possible to reach out and touch someone else one beautiful handmade card or handwritten letter at a time. And her business is called Joy Festival Industries. Let's hear her story.
So when I was first diagnosed, it was all a little overwhelming. The nurse from the pharmaceutical company that makes my injection, my biologic, she came to my house to show me how to give it to myself. She looked at me and said, honestly, you're going to try and angle this and fling it into your thigh like a javelin thrower. She brought an orange. They often teach people how to inject on an orange, but she had me practice javelin throwing into the orange. I was like, what? She was like, spirit. And all I could think of was wild salmon fishing when she said that. My thigh was a salmon, and I was going to do my level best to get my javelins to the flesh. Huh? I thought to myself at the time, I'm a 5'3" Jewish girl from the Midwest. I didn't even do well in the Presidential Physical Fitness Awards. Every year we had to do those. But I've seen the Olympics. I know what a javelin thrower does. I didn't care about the orange, but I thought to myself, if I fling it into my thigh like that, it's really going to hurt. But she was right. It needs to be angled that way to get it right on the fleshy meat of your thigh. I angled it that way, and I've done so ever since, and it works. So I have to give myself this injection every 2 weeks. And I happen to have this injection, a biologic that's a gel. It goes really slow through the barrel of the needle. It's a long needle and a slow, thick gel. You can't make it go quick. Gel doesn't move through a needle quick, ever. So you just have to sit there and wait and make some peace with it along the way. So the other night, it was time for me to give myself my injection, and I took it out from the dedicated crisper drawer that we have for it, because I don't want it to get confused with the lettuce, you know. I put it on the counter. It's got to be at room temperature. I used to think there was some exact magic number it had to be out for of minutes, but I realize it just has to be out, not really cold. If it's really cold, it actually hurts really bad, even worse than it normally sort of hurts. So I'm doing the dishes. I wait. I dry my hands, think maybe it's time. My phone rings. It's my mother-in-law. Do you have time to learn right now? She asks me. I read her a chapter of a book every couple of days on positive thinking. Ronnie, can I call you back in 5 minutes? I've got to do something right now. Sure, call me back in 5 minutes. After that, I have to give myself a breathing treatment, she says. Okay, I'll call you back in a few. I dry my hands again. I walk over to the dining room table, grab the rubbing alcohol, which has been there for the last few years during COVID. Grab that, the box of Kleenex, go sit on the edge of the rocking chair, splay my thigh, wipe it down, take the cap off the injection, whack it with the side of my finger, whack it again because I might not have gotten any little bubbles possibly out. 1, 2, 3, fling goes the javelin thrower into my thigh. So my thoughts go faster than the gel goes through the needle. I start thinking about reading to my mother-in-law, and then I remember talking to the lady from the pharmaceutical company who has to send me my specialized drug every month. They ask you a bunch of questions, and it's usually a production every month, and it always kind of stresses me out to call. And she starts asking me things, and I answer. And then she tells me she's got to give me the list of all the side effects, and all these heinous things. Yeah, I could basically keel over tomorrow, and she's going to tell me all of this and then be like, have a good night. And I say, I'm going to hang up right now. It's not you. I understand you legally have to tell me all of this. I understand it's part of your job, but I've got to hang up right now because I have to live with myself. And I do this every month. And she starts to keep going on with her list. And I say, I'm hanging up right now. It's not you. I'm not mad. And I hang up. And I think to myself, they have to tell you this every month, but I know this already. First of all, I'm a librarian. I could look it up. Second of all, my doctor told me a lot of this already. Third of all, you gave me the insert. The things like this multi-page map of the United States that folds out and has to be folded back, these strange combinations in order to fit in that little box. I could have read that. It would have taken me a while, but you've already informed me. I can't listen because I have to live with myself. I tell myself when I look down my thigh again, and I see where the gel is, the needle, I tell myself the medicine is working even as I do this. The medicine is working even while I'm giving myself the injection and even while I'm thinking. The gel goes slow through the needle, just sort of like getting used to this illness and getting used to giving yourself a biologic does. You can't speed it up. It's just a process in my life and make it just a part of my life. Like the dishes, the call with my mother-in-law, grab it, do it, keep going, keep moving forward, all of it. I remember in the beginning, it seemed like it was bigger than it does now. And even now, there's things to adjust to, but I can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. Because if I do, when I'm giving myself my injection, my body tenses up. When my body's tight and tense, it hurts much worse to give myself the injection. I remind myself of a quote from the Zohar that the toughest battle is in the mind. When I fling the javelin into my thigh, and the whole production around giving myself the injection and all of it. I have to learn to remember that those thoughts that get me down are just opponents that I'm fighting with my mind's weapons, as well as my hand-thrown spear. A javelin was originally a weapon used for spearing in battle. I have to remind myself that the medicine is working even while I do this. And in the Olympic sport of javelin throwing and living my life with this disease, I can't afford to go down the rabbit hole of my own negativity. So I fling my javelin thrower. I fling with my javelin thrower hand into my thigh and into the battle that I have to fight every day with my thoughts. And so far, I'm still in the game.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Sean.
Thank you so much for telling your story on SAA Storytellers. That was amazing. How do you feel?
I feel great. And thank you so much for helping me get to the kernel of what I wanted to say.
It was such
really
a... You're welcome. It was such a fun journey. I learned an awful lot. So thank you for teaching me.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what hobbies do you do to like relax and stay busy and focused?
I love doing paper crafting and making handmade cards and pretty card making skills that I learned. I also like to swim and spend time down at the ocean. Mm-hmm. But one of my big ones is card making.
Do you have a business or a website or something we could share with people?
Yeah, on joyfestivalindustries.com, there's a gallery. I also sell cards on there. And then there's a section also about workshops and things that I teach on there. So people can find out about crafting workshops and also writing workshops that I teach there as well.
Excellent. Well, we're going to put a link in the chat for the show so people can access you and see what you're about. And I can't thank you enough for being part of SAA Storytellers. It's been so great having you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Sean. You too.
Many thanks to Amy for sharing her personal story and being part of this project. If you'd like to learn more about Amy, just click that link in the chat. Okay. Our next storyteller is Rick Phillips. Lawrence Rick Phillips has been married to his wife, Cheryl, for 45 years. They have 2 sons they love very much and 3 grandchildren they love even more. Rick was diagnosed with diabetes at age 16 while at Disney World, which he says proves that Disney World is not always the happiest place on earth. He was diagnosed with RA in 1999 and AS in 2015. He enjoys afternoon walks with Cheryl and laughing at himself, and he says it's always not clear which one that he likes more. Rick blogs at www.radiabetes.com, where he welcomes all visitors. He also notes that he has saved his college eligibility for 46 years, just so that he will one day be ready when the Indiana Hoosiers need him, which seems likely to happen at any moment. Maybe. Oh, let's hear his story.
You know, ankylosing spondylitis didn't just happen to me. It really was a progression. And it really started when I was back in high school. My mom used to say, Rick, stand up straight. You got to stand up straight. And I'd say, but Mom, I am standing up straight. And she said, but you're not standing up straight because you're kind of bent forward. And I said, well, Mom, I'm doing the best I can. And of course, I politely ignored her. I just went on about my business. Well, as time went on, my back really started to hurt. I mean, it really hurt. And it turns out that I was seeing a rheumatologist, and it got to hurting to the point where I asked the rheumatologist, I said, you know, my back is really hurting. And he said, well, let me do some testing. And so he did some testing, and he did this and he did that. And I went to see him, and he said, well, the really good thing is you don't have ankylosing spondylitis. And I said, well, that's fantastic that I don't have ankylosing spondylitis. And he said, well, that is fantastic. So we went on treating other stuff. And then at about 2013, I had my right hip replaced. It was a childhood injury. And I told the surgeon at the time, I said, you know, my back really hurts. And he said, well, whatever we're going to do with the hip, it won't hurt it any. And so he replaced the hip, and things seemed to be better. Sort of marched on a little bit, and my back started hurting again. So I talked to my rheumatologist, and I said, hey, my back still hurts. And he said, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll send you over and talk to this back place over here. There's a new guy in town. They have non-surgical intervention to help with the back. So I go over and see him. He's a very nice man, very nice doctor. And he hooks me up with the physical therapist. And the physical therapist says, Rick, you got to stand up straight. And I said, but I am standing up straight. And she said, no, you're not standing up straight. So she worked and worked and worked with me. And finally she said, you know, I don't think you are going to stand up any straighter than what you are. And I said, well, I don't think so either, because I've been trying to for, you know, almost 40 years. And so we sort of left it at that. Well, in about 2015, I told my rheumatologist again, I said, listen, my back really hurts. And he said, well, I think it could be a neurology problem. I'll send you to the neurologist. So I go see the neurologist. And the neurologist says, hey, it could be that you've got you've got a nerve problem down your back. And he said, I've had really good success having it treated with this chiropractor. And he said, so I want you to go see his chiropractor. So I went to see him. And the very first time I was in there, he hooked me up to the TENS machine, and I was bouncing all around and everything. And it was just fantastic. And then he took me in the back room and he jerked me, and I sat straight up, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Well, I paid my money, made my next appointment, and got out of the office, and I walked maybe 10 feet. And at about that 10 feet, my back popped back in, and it started hurting really bad. Well, the chiropractor had me on this deal where I would go 2 or 3 times a week, and every time I'd go in, and he would jerk me up straight, and I would go check out, and you know, eventually I would get to the point where I could walk maybe 12 feet or 20 feet. And finally I asked him, I said, doctor, what is going on that you jerk me straight up and I feel really good, but when I walk out of your office, I can only get about 20 feet. And I said, that's not acceptable. And he said, how long have you had ankylosing spondylitis? I don't have ankylosing spondylitis because my rheumatologist told me I don't. And he said, but you do. And I said, but apparently I don't. And he said, well, I'm not a medical doctor, but that's what I think. So my hip was still hurting, and I saw my surgeon, my hip surgeon, and I went and saw the guy, and I said, hey, my back still hurts. And he said, well, it's not your back. It's not your hip, it's your back. And I said, oh, well, it sure feels like my hip. And I showed him, and he said, no, that's your back. So he sent me to another back surgeon. And the back surgeon, he says, you know, I think what's going on is you got a pinched nerve. And he said, what I want to do is this spinal procedure. We're going to hollow it out, make a little bit more room in there. And he said, eventually it'll get better. And it did. It did. However, over time, my back still got to the point where it was really hurting. And I told my rheumatologist again, and he said, I'm going to send you back to the non-surgical intervention folks. Well, I went back to the non-surgical intervention, and what And I finally got a nurse practitioner, and she said, "How long have you had ankylosing spondylitis?" I said, "I don't have ankylosing spondylitis." She said, "But you do, because I can see it right here." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't know." And she said, "And by the way, I think that you've got a condition that's associated with ankylosing spondylitis that causes you to bend forward." And she said, "Now there's one surgeon around who can correct this." So I went and saw that surgeon, and the surgeon says, "Hey, how long have you had ankylosing spondylitis?" I said, "I don't have ankylosing spondylitis." He said, "But I think you do." And so he said, "But I can still operate on you." He said, "Now, I normally do these with kids who are 15, 16 years old, but you're like 60. And he said, I think it will just be, we'll just have to accept what we get." I said, "That's fine." So we had the surgery. I went to the surgery. In the morning surgery, he said, "Now, at the end of the surgery, you might be a little bit taller." And I said, "Well, I've lost a lot of height, so that's not too bad." I woke up in my bed, and I was all drugged up and everything, had all them opioids chasing around my mind in order to kill that pain. And I noticed that my feet were probably 2 or 3 feet off the edge of the bed, off the end. And I told my wife, I said, "Call IU right now, because I have gained, I must now be 9 feet tall." And she said, "No, you're 4 feet from the head of the bed." So she positioned me back up, and sure enough, I gained about 2 inches. Now, the surgery that the surgeon did was absolutely successful. But one great thing that I learned from this whole thing was that I was finally able to tell my mom, "See, now I can stand up straight."
Thank you, Rick, for being part of SAA Storytellers. I really enjoyed your story.
Oh, I really had such a good time. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, quick question for you. I think you have a lot of hobbies. You want to share a few of them with us?
Well, sure. I love to ride my bicycle and walk. My wife and I try to walk just about every day, both in the summer and winter. And over my shoulders here, you can see 2 of my other hobbies. On this side, you can see that I have hard rock pins from all the different hard rocks that I visited. And over on the other side, you can see a bridge made out of connects. It's a model of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I like to do connects.
Which leads me to my next question. So, what's it like having AS and like working on a model or something? Do you have a special setup or something so that you can sit and do it?
No, I like to waller on the floor. And these days, that means that sometimes I can't do it as long as I would like, but it's okay. At my age, I'm 65. At my age, I get to spend whatever time I want to on it, and put it away and recover, and then get it back out when I get bored or have some time, and waller around on the floor again.
So that brings me yet to my next question. It sounds like being able to be adaptive to a lot of different movements and activities is really a key to living with AS. Have you experienced that in your life?
Oh, yeah. There was a time when I could barely walk across the street. And I really have focused on trying to move better, but also trying to build my stamina. And those things don't just come naturally. You have to work at it, you have to build up to it. And so I do work on that. And I call it work, but it's not really work. It's riding my bicycle 4 or 5 miles a day at the beginning of summer, and then doing the like the Indianapolis Night Ride, which is a 20-mile ride, doing that midsummer. I wouldn't start doing the Indianapolis Night Ride on the first day. Or, for instance, walking. I was doing about 6 miles most days last summer. I'm down to about 1.5 miles, and I'll gradually build that back up. I won't just latch back into trying to do 4 or 5 miles at the start of summer. It's a build-up process.
Totally. Rick, thank you so much for sharing your story and your heart and your hobbies with us. We're so lucky to have you here, and it's been a pleasure working with you and developing your story. Thanks again for being part of SAA Storytellers.
Again, thank you so much for inviting me. I had such a good time.
That was so great. Another big thank you to Rick for sharing his personal story with such honesty, such humor, and candor. If you'd like to learn more about Rick, just click the link in the chat. And a big thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I hope you're enjoying these great storytellers, right? If you'd like to learn more about SAA Storytellers, Your Stories on Stage, and join us, please, as a storyteller, we'd love to have you for a future show. Just click the link in the chat. Okay. Our next storyteller is Ricky White. Ricky is a developer, writer, community manager, and a martial artist. He's also the president and founding member of Walk as One, a nonprofit based in Maine. Walk as One is an all-volunteer organization that mobilizes and motivates a global community to raise awareness and address the challenges of those affected by AS and its family of diseases. As a patient with AS, this charity is obviously very dear to his heart. Ricky makes it his mission to learn something new every day, that he's continually looking to improve himself and become the best role model he can for his kids and those he teaches. Ricky puts the same dedication and passion into everything he does. Let's hear Ricky's story.
Hey friends, I wanted to tell you a little story about my journey as a martial artist. It helped me overcome some struggles and helped me control my AS. And it also helped me defend myself, not from anyone else, but from myself. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So in 2010, I was diagnosed with AS. And after a few years of mistreatment, ineffective medications, I was getting worse. And by October 2014, my family and I emigrated to the United States of America from England. And I got to the point where I was overweight, I was unfit, and now I was uninsured and off medication. So things weren't going great for me. I knew I needed to do something about it, but I never took that first step. Until one day, something triggered that. I had 2 sets of eyes looking at me and copying everything I was doing. I was now a stay-at-home dad, and I had 2 young children, and they were not only imitating the good things, but also imitating all my bad habits. And I realized that it was getting increasingly more difficult for me to help them make good decisions when I wasn't being a role model. Instead, I was being a hypocrite. So that triggered me to do something about it. Now, I've been to the gym every January almost, and stopped going to the gym every year like most people. I knew that wasn't for me. I did train in karate for 5 years as a child. And so it's always been something I've enjoyed, and especially watching martial arts movies as I grew up. So I decided to join the local karate dojo. And I thought, well, maybe I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and not only get fitter, but also meet new people and new friends in a new country. It really didn't take long before I found out that I was not only helping my AS, I was getting less pain, less stiffness. My flexibility was increasing. I was getting stronger, and I was building resilience up in my body. So I was able to tolerate the bad days better. It became addictive. And so I went from doing 2 sessions a week to almost every day. That, along with my new diet helped me lose 40 pounds in weight. It was a huge transformation for me, and I'd never felt better, never been even fitter than even when I was even younger before AS. But one of the most important factors of the whole journey was I made new friends, and I developed a support network doing something I love. And that support network proved to be a key to my success. Because not everything was plain sailing. There was a lot of difficult times through my training. There was grueling belt tests as I tested for each new belt and rank, and they got progressively harder, as you would expect. But I was also trying to train through flares. I was still having regular flares, and every time I didn't train in a flare, it was twice as hard returning. So I knew I had to keep going, even though I really didn't want to be there. It was a huge mental overhead, and to be able to accept that one day my body was able to do extraordinary things, but then the next day I could barely walk. Overcoming such swings of highs and lows was really mentally challenging, but I got through that because of the new support network. They were encouraging me, and they wanted me to succeed, and they helped me learn how to make my martial arts work for me on the good days and on the bad. It became a journey of self-discovery, of self-improvement, and body awareness. I learned so much about my body, about how it reacts to certain situations and certain stresses. And it helps me plan and manage my S so much better. And I'm proud to say that on the 20th of May in 2017, I earned my black belt. Huge achievement, which I'm obviously never going to forget. But I also never thought I would ever be possible with someone with AS. And now, despite all those bad days, I'm now a second degree black belt. I'm now a teacher of martial arts, and I'm teaching the next generation and new adults that are coming in to do exactly what I did. Their reasons may be different. They may not have AS. They may have other reasons to be there, but it's the same journey all the same, and I'm helping them along. And so now I have well-controlled AS along with medications and my martial arts. But just as important is my children now emulating good habits. They're eating better, and they now seek exercise. And in fact, my son even trains with me in the dojo. So I found throughout the whole process that trying something new isn't always scary. It can be scary, but if you do something you enjoy and there's a support network around you, you can get through it. You can get through the hard days if you've got that support network. I couldn't have done it without my new friends and my family. And I was able to focus on not what I can't do anymore, but what I can do. And even though what I can do changed so drastically from day to day, focusing on then in the moment was what got me through. And with that, I hope that you find something new to try, and you're able to find something that not only helps keep you moving, but also helps you develop that support network so you can help keep going through even when it gets tough.
Thank you, Ricky, so much for being on SAA Storytellers. That was great.
Thanks for having me, inviting me. It's always a pleasure to work with the SAA.
Absolutely. So I wanted you to tell me just a little bit more about Walk as One. Can you share some things about that right now?
Sure. So Walk as One is another nonprofit based in the US, although we serve a global community, not just America. We're an all-volunteer organization, and our mission is to help people get mobile and motivated to just do a little bit more than they used to. Maybe that's just an extra step, and maybe it's an extra mile, but just do a little bit more than you used to be able to do. It's all about improving yourself and really taking control of your AS and kind of showing it's who's boss, right? Mm-hmm. That's always important. So we have an event every year in May, which is Spondylitis Awareness Month, called Walk Your AS Off, where we encourage people to track their steps and kind of donate their steps to a global goal, which is to walk all the way to Mars. We've already circumvented the Earth. We've already walked to the moon, and now we're on our way to Mars. So we're over 3 billion steps tracked so far. We've still got a long way to go to get to Mars, but we're getting there. One step at a time.
One step at a time, yes. So this is a virtual event, right? So you can track your steps from anywhere.
Correct. And we also, so yes, you can track your steps from anywhere, but you can also track any activity. So whether that's martial arts like me, or it's gardening, or it's swimming, or it's cycling, we can convert that into a step count to add to your step total. And just as important, wheels, step, miles count too.
Nice. So I also want to ask you about these 2 black belts. So how awesome is it having, congratulations, by the way, and how awesome is it having them? Has it changed your life?
Yeah, karate's changed my life for sure. I mean, it's not the black belt that changed my life. It's just a colored belt, right? It's the journey to get to the black belt that changes your life. And so if you work hard enough, I truly believe that anyone can achieve a black belt, because it's not always about being able to kick this high. That's not what it's about. It's about the character it takes to put the work in over and over again to get to black belt. And I do believe it's achievable for a lot more people than people may realize. But yeah, it is a big tick off the old life achievements. The second one was extremely tough. I mean, physically, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Maybe the hardest thing I'll ever get to do. Whether I get to go around and test for a 3rd degree is I don't know, is out for debate. But that's some years off anyway, if that ever happens. But you just got to keep going, and it's all about the journey and the building of character, and it's a way of life in a sense. You know, the things we learn inside the dojo help us outside the dojo, help us be more resilient to stress, help us even just sit better in a chair, or there's lots of mental things it can help you with, but also obviously the physical as well.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Your message of try something new, I'm certainly going to take to heart, and I'm so glad you were able to share it today on SAA Storytellers. Thank you so much for being here, Ricky.
No, it's always a pleasure, Sean.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
You too.
That was wonderful. Thanks to Ricky for his touching and inspirational story. Thanks so much for being part of SAA Storytellers. If you'd like to learn more about Ricky and Walk as One, just click the links in the chat. I also want to share that SAA doesn't receive any government funding, and we rely on private donations. Funds received help sustain programs like our National Support Group program. I'll put a link in the chat to our donation page if you'd like to help SAA fulfill its mission. You can also volunteer, give a gift in memory or tribute. There are so many ways to support SAA. Okay, we are now ready to introduce our final storyteller of the night. It's Carrie Kellenberger. Carrie is a Canadian living in Taiwan with axial spondyloarthritis, fibromyalgia, and ME/CFS. She's an expert on talking about life with chronic pain and fatigue and how it affects patients. Her blog, My Several Worlds, provides information for other chronically ill patients and patient support. Her illnesses have shaped the various worlds she lives in and has inspired her to support other patients. She says, "Welcome to my several worlds." Let's hear Carrie's story.
"You're going to do what?" my mother asked as we were driving home from our family cottage in Canada in July 2002. "I'm moving abroad for a year to teach English, and then I'm going to travel and see the world, Mum." The look on her face. "No, you're not. Why on earth would you want to do that, Carrie? It's not safe." In 2002, I was 26 years old, and I was longing for different experiences before settling down into the life that was expected of me. But like always, life takes you down a different path, and my life took me to China and countless other countries since. Now, if anyone had ever told me I'd move abroad and not come home, I never would have believed them. At that time, I had no idea I would live in China for 3 years. I just knew that I was getting my teaching certificate and I'd be halfway around the world by the time next summer. The health problems that had plagued me since childhood seemed under control when I made the decision to move abroad. The low back pain and joint pain was gone. I was in good shape, I felt fit and ready, and after all, what can happen in a year? A lot, as it turns out, but I'll get to that part of my story soon. Shortly after arriving in China in early 2003, I learned that there was a mysterious virus going around called SARS. Travelers were being called back home to their home countries. Before I could even consider booking a flight, SARS had already popped up in Toronto, so I decided to stay put. It didn't take long, and by summer 2003, we were in the full swing of things with classes. My boss and I also began prepping for a big talent show for foreigners in Changchun, China at the end of the year. And that's how my music and television career started in Asia. After participating in that show, we flew to Beijing to participate in a 2-week-long reality TV show for foreigners from all over China, and that show aired during Lunar New Year in 2004. I really learned how to roll with the punches during my first year in China. What a valuable lesson this was. Learning how to adapt to changes came from traveling and life abroad, where life isn't like anything like what we're used to back home. These lessons helped me for what was to come. It was shortly after the television show that those pesky back, shoulder, and neck problems returned. Then it started affecting my legs and joints. There were days I'd wake up and I couldn't move my head or lift my arm or put any weight on my left foot. I had severe morning stiffness and unrelenting chronic pain, but it was easy to brush it off because of my lifestyle. I mean, how much are we supposed to do in our 20s? We're supposed to do everything. We're supposed to seize life and seize the day and grab those reins and do it all and do it with no regrets. I also had crushing fatigue, but at that time, I'd also met a man and I'd fallen in love, and we found ourselves in Taipei, Taiwan in early 2006. And we took every opportunity that came our way. And so I did, and I pushed the discomfort and pain to the side and convinced myself that what I was experiencing was normal. And because I had been normalizing that pain since my teens and pushing through it, it was easy to convince myself that everyone felt that way. 2 years went by in Taipei with the same symptoms, but I kept on going and saying yes to everything until I couldn't. In February 2009, I woke up to a heavy feeling in my legs, and that was the first time that I felt what inflammation really felt like. It felt like my legs and hips and lower back were filling up with cement. The next day, I woke up with hot, red, swollen knees, and my feet were starting to swell. Every time I stood up, it felt like my legs were going to snap, and ER attention was needed. Even sitting in the wheelchair was painful. I kept trying to alleviate this enormous pain, and of course, my legs wouldn't support me. The ER doc took one look at me and asked me if I had been tested for rheumatoid arthritis. He aspirated my knees, did some tests, and sent me home with painkillers and anti-inflammatories. But the swelling came back, and I was still in a wheelchair when we returned a week later. He thought I had something called ankylosing spondylitis. They didn't have an AS specialist on staff, so he referred me to another hospital where my AS diagnosis was confirmed within a week. We now know I have axial spondyloarthritis and psoriatic arthritis. Sure enough, the diagnosis was correct, and that was my answer to 15 years of chronic pain. I started treatment, and eventually the inflammation went down. Things were improving, so I went back to the gym, I went back on stage, and we were full tilt with our travels. I mean, we really traveled. But then July 2014 rolled around, and the swelling was back, and I was out of remission from arthritis. It's 2022 now, and I'm still living in Asia. I've been here for 18 years. I own my own business, and I assist teachers in finding teaching positions for their adventures abroad in Asia. I'm also a health advocate for foreigners in Taiwan and Asia who are looking for information on how to navigate foreign healthcare systems that do not offer information in English. Axial spondyloarthritis derailed my life because it took so long to get a diagnosis, and then there was the delay to treatment. But this takes us around the start of my story. Life is a journey, and I have traveled long and hard. The experiences, good and bad, are all part of the process. When life decided to take me on a journey with illness, I went with it just like I went with all of the adventures I'd had with travel. Although I've had to give up things I love the most, I found other things that I love equally as much. I found other ways to live life to the fullest, and that is really what my story is about today. Some things never go according to plan. Some things go just as you expected, and some things bring you right back to where you belong. And I do believe that my journey has brought me right where I belong in life, living a full life in Asia with AS and loving it. My travels have helped me gain experience in life. In the midst of illness, I could still choose how I wanted to live each day within my limits and be who I want to be. I used to be a traveler, but now my days are filled with helping others navigate their own journey, and we can take those journeys together. After all, the point is to keep moving forward. We keep on going.
Carrie, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been so excited to be here and do this for you guys.
It's been so great to get to know you better and work on your story with you. I have to ask you, though, so this reality show thing in Asia, you have to tell me more.
That I kind of fell into by accident. I didn't actually move to China to get into entertainment, even though I've been singing since I was 6 years old. So during that time in China, during SARS, when we were all kind of locked up and couldn't work or teach classes, my boss and I decided that we were going to start getting ready for this foreign talent show that was happening at the end of the year. We'd gone to KTV one night. He's like, wow, you can really sing. And we were recording radio English programs for taxi drivers at that time. So he knew I could get on stage and have some fun with it. But the only problem was I didn't speak any Chinese at that time. So I had jumped into Chinese lessons, and we were kind of prepping all summer. And then Changchun television station held a talent show as the precursor to the reality show in Beijing. So I had a television crew that came, and they were following me around China and basically just wanting to get a glimpse of an idea of how a foreigner lives in Changchun. And then we did the TV show in Changchun, where I sang Scarborough Fair in an impossibly high. It was so high, I couldn't even believe it. I'm a contralto, so to sing soprano was I can do it, but I can't do it comfortably. But I did it, and I did it really well. And that got me into the Beijing Arts in Our Land competition. There were 46 performers that came in from all over China. And we stayed at a hotel in China, and we're basically working for Beijing TV. And they had us doing all sorts of weird things. Like they sent us out into the food market areas where we had to learn how to make long noodles. Like you stretch those noodles out. And then we learned how to cook them. And then we had to go out and sell them to people on the streets. And they had us, like they'd put us on skateboards, and we'd have to like skateboard through malls and try to like buy things. But I couldn't speak any English at all. So I couldn't speak any Chinese at all. So I was basically just begging people to please buy my noodles and please sell me that. We did a lot of competitions during that time, just singing competitions and who could get the songs right in Chinese. And then all during that time, I had a Chinese vocal coach who didn't speak any English. So that was the first time I'd worked with a vocal coach in another language. And, every time I said a word wrong, I could just see him rolling his eyes. It's so funny. But that culminated in the final show. And that was in an auditorium in Beijing. There was no heat. It was so cold in the auditorium. I had high heels on, and somebody had put down a glass stage, and I had to walk down these stairs in these high heels. And I'm like, I'm going to fall and I'm going to miss my first note. And I did. But I didn't fall. I missed my first note. But the rest of the performance went really, really well. And I was the only foreigner there that had really basic Chinese. Like I could say hello and goodbye and how are you and how old are you, but that's about it. So I ended up placing third in that reality TV show, which is really good considering I don't speak any Chinese. And people ask me, how did you learn a song in Chinese? And I actually sang Yue Guang Ai Ren, which is the love song to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Aww.
And the secret to learning a song in a second language is to learn it backwards.
That's amazing. Listen, I just want you to mention your blog really quick because I want to make sure that I put a link in the chat after your story so people can get to know you a little better.
Sure. I started My Several Worlds in January 2007, and that was actually just a way to update my family and friends back home in Canada about our travels in Asia, because at that time we were traveling a lot, and they wanted to know what my life was like abroad. And that ended up kind of launching a travel career for me. So the first few years that I was blogging, I was also doing travel assignments for various travel magazines all over Asia. They were sending me to the Philippines and Indonesia and Vietnam and Thailand. And then I got sick. So suddenly I had this travel blog, but I couldn't travel. And I kind of had a delay there where I couldn't do anything with My Several Worlds. I didn't know what direction to take it in. But the blog is named after Pearl S. Buck's autobiography called My Several Worlds, which is about her travels to China during the Cultural Revolution. So she had also talked a little bit about illness in her family when she was going back and forth between China. Her parents were missionaries. So I decided, okay, well, maybe I can take this title and transform it into a blog about living abroad with chronic illness and perhaps offer some information for foreign patients here who can't find information on what they're living with in English here in Taiwan and in Asia. So that kind of spurred me to get into providing more articles about things that you should be thinking about when you're going to different hospitals and how you can navigate those appointments with doctors when you're working in a second language.
Awesome. Carrie, thank you so much for being here on SAA Storytellers. You are so fascinating. I loved your story, and it was so great to get to know you better. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the SAA. If not for you guys in 2009, when I got my diagnosis, I would have been left out in the cold. A special thanks to Richard Howard, because he just gave me so much information. He's just a great guy. And you guys have been so helpful. I pass on your information to my doctors here all the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I hope you have a great day.
You too. A big shout out to Carrie. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being part of this project. If you'd like to learn more about Carrie and My Several Worlds, just click the link in the chat. What a wonderful group of storytellers tonight. Patrick Herzer, Amy Muskoplatt, Rick Phillips, Ricky White, and Carrie Kellenberger. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being so brave and sharing your personal journey with us. If you would like to join us for the next SAA Storytellers Your Stories on Stage presentation, I'll put a link in the chat and you can save the date now with a virtual ticket. Thank you so much for helping us create community and empathy through the power of story. I love, love, love storytelling, and it is so much fun and my pleasure to share it with you tonight. Also, another big thank you to Lily for helping to make this space possible. I hope you will consider telling a story with SAA. Thank you for joining us this evening, and have a great night.
you.